Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the Nerds and Jesus podcast. Welcome, my name is Mary Howell. I'm a Christian and a worship leader who happens to also be a huge nerd according to myself, all my friends, family, and coworkers. And recently I've been wanting to discuss how Christian nerds are to navigate living in the secular world, how we are to be a light in the darkness while also nerding out on all types of fandoms pop culture has to offer. And today we will be reviewing The Little Mermaid. But I am not on this podcast alone, as I am joined this week by baker extraordinaire. She works in the legal field and also happens to be my sister, Diana Howell. Diana, how's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm so great. I literally grabbed you from downstairs. I'm like, hey, do you want to join this episode?
I was very busy. I was TikToking Anna. Oh, sorry. I call her Anna. Should we explain that? Because I'm going to probably call you that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I'm going to give you the story, y'all. So I call her Anna because when we were little, my mom tried to make us call each other hermana, which means sister in Spanish, but it didn't really stick. So we call each other Anna. Makes sense for me. I'm Diana. But then I freak everyone out when I call her Anna. Poor thing. She's Mary Elizabeth Anna.
It makes no sense. My friends would always be like, wait, why'd she call you Anna?
Yeah. So just so you know.
I feel like this episode's going to be chaotic. Oh my gosh. Well, I always ask two questions to my guests. How long have you been a Christian?
Ooh.
And you're welcome to share a little bit of your story.
Ooh. Okay. So I've been a Christian for, I guess you could say 13 years since I was 10, which obviously feels very odd for some people to think about, like being saved when you're 10. But that was 100% my story. So since I was 10, and I've always been like a goody two-shoes type A kind of person, which kind of applied to my walk with God as well. And yeah, since I was 10, love Jesus. Yay. Every day. All day.
And second question, how big of a nerd are you? And if you can choose your top fandom that is your niche, what would it be?
I don't feel like I'm a typical nerd. I think my nerddom started in just trying to watch the same things you were watching. Like I was watching like chick flicks, Tom Hanks movies, and like you were watching Marvel movies. And I was like, ugh, fine, I'll start watching them. And then I loved them. So I feel like I'm like the good person to like talk to for people who don't watch a lot of that stuff. And like, I love it. I'm so into it. And I will always be there at a premiere for every Marvel movie. That's probably my favorite. I watched Harry Potter just like a few years ago, and I love that.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
I mean, by all the things
watched
you're
the
saying,
extended version of everything
before I did.
That means a lot. I mean, all of you Lord of the Rings people know, like those are very long movies.
Very long.
Watch them all.
Did we watch the extended when we rewatched them recently?
No, we did not.
No, we'll have to do that. But it's so funny because like Diana and I have to say Diana and I because I don't know. You know, my sister and I, we always we have a thing where we have to like watch the same show, like whenever like we're, you know, we have lunch or whatever. And so I think that's really where it started because we wanted to watch the same thing.
Because let me get annoyed. Okay, so I'm the type of person, I'm having my meal, I need to be watching some sort of media at the same exact time. And then I get upset. Like I cannot start my meal until I have a show starting. Yeah. It makes me upset. And then so we have to have like a show that we're constantly watching together. But I'm a jerk. I go ahead of you, and I know that's terrible. I'll have to like rewatch.
I come home and I'm like, all right, ready to watch the next episode?
It's bad.
And she's like, I already watched it.
I'm sorry.
Especially whenever it's like any Disney Plus show of Marvel that's come out.
But sometimes we do it to each other there.
I know. Because sometimes I'm like, I watched it already. You go ahead and watch it.
It's too good. Okay, sorry. Go back.
Anyway, but cool. Yeah, I mean, that is, so what is that one, I guess Marvel would be your one.
I would say that. That's probably good. I mean, I will watch everything.
Yeah. We'll go watch a Marvel movie and then come back and watch like a review about like all the Easter eggs and everything about it. And well, but today we are talking Little Mermaid. We just saw it about a couple hours ago. Oh my gosh. Well, first what we're going to do is no spoiler review, even though people, if you haven't seen the original animated show,
we're going to talk without giving spoilers.
So no, there's two portions of this.
Okay.
We're going to do like maybe like a minute long or so, like no spoiler review for those who haven't watched it and for some reason clicked on the episode to listen to this episode. And then we'll talk spoiler about like more detail of, you know, how the actors did, blah, 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 all the things like that. So, okay. So these are no spoilers, nothing crazy. Your honest review.
All right. If you're expecting Avatar, don't expect it. That's not what this is. It's not going to be that quality.
Not Avatar.
It's not the same budget.
It's not, honestly.
Please do not expect that.
Isn't that weird that it's the same company?
Is it?
Disney.
Wow. Okay, but the budget's like incredibly different. So that's my number one thing. I think manage your expectations.
Yeah, I think all the critiques that came about it beforehand with the trailers is out the window because it's complete opposite.
It's
Because
good.
it was good. It was great.
I feel like a lot of these adaptations of these Disney movies, some of the biggest complaints of folks would be like, oh, it didn't stay true to the animated version, or oh, there wasn't enough music, or oh, they completely changed all the songs. And I feel like this was the first one. I was just like, this seemed pretty on point. Like everything was just pretty consistent.
Yeah, I think that's what I felt a lot about this film was I felt I was watching the animated series in a way, but in a better. I don't know. It's really hard to say without spoilers.
Is that too many spoilers?
I don't think that's a spoiler. I'm sorry if it's a spoiler. If you're listening, you're like, what? It's exactly like the animated film. Well, not exactly. But I mean, spoilers. You kind of expect it. If you've seen any of the other remakes, I mean, you know the storyline. It's what you expect it to be. Yeah. So I don't think that's a spoiler. All right, well, that's it of the non-spoiler reviews because there's not really much to say that's non-spoilerish. If you are, haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want to hear more of the details of the film, I would go ahead and pause here, go watch the movie, come back at this point. So, all right, here's the spoilers in 3, 2, 1. I loved it so much.
Amazing.
During the song Part of Your World when she's singing it and the high notes that was hit, I had goosebumps. I was like tears welling up because I don't know. I think like Little Mermaid, and we talked about this. We had like a debrief afterwards when we had
Olive Garden debrief.
Olive Garden. But man, I think Little Mermaid is just one of my favorite Disney princesses growing up. Okay, probably people are asking, Mary, why are you talking about the Little Mermaid on a Nerds and Jesus podcast? Listen, last week we talked about fantasy, and a lot about fantasy is we talked about Disney princesses because there's magic involved. There's sirens involved in a way, mermaids. There's magic. I mean, there's so much encompassing that goes within the realm of fantasy. Anyway,
would you say it's like the OG fantasy living as a little girl? Like this was our first intro to fantasy.
Yes. Think about it.
Was like
it has magic. It has the damsel in distress in a way, the whole, there's the fight sequences. There's the whole part of that makes fantasy within these animated shows for children, which makes us want more as we grow older.
We all wanted the Prince Charming.
Exactly.
Knight in shining armor.
That's the whole thing. Yeah. Anyway.
In or and?
In, because you're in shining armor.
The knight and the shining armor. That's the important part.
Shining armor is just like hanging out next to Prince Charming.
Hey, came with the
when I think of Prince Charming, I just think of Shrek. Okay, we're sidetracked. Little Mermaid. Man, all the stigmas of all the controversy even going into before Little Mermaid of like, it's a different, she doesn't look like what we're used to for Little Mermaid. She was amazing, fantastic, phenomenal, nailed it. Like, even the animation with Sebastian and Flounder and all that, and even Scuttle. What's her name? My brain is I'm forgetting her name. Scuttle. The actress's name. Aquafina as Scuttle. I was weary at first. I'm like, Scuttle but it's a boy bird, but
she was
Aquafina rocked it.
But she did. But I feel like I couldn't get past the fact that was Aquafina. Like I literally, I heard her and I was like, Aquafina. Like I couldn't be immersed. I think that took me out of the film a little bit.
I can see that.
She's so recognizable. She has such a recognizable voice. Like she did a great job, but she's just too famous. I'm just kidding.
She's too famous. Sebastian's was, I believe, David Diggs, who's from Hamilton, which is why he was able to rap all the rap parts that Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It's not Sebastian.
Sebastian.
Even King Triton called him Sebastian.
Pero Sebastian.
I don't know if you guys seen that TikTok, very niche group.
Yeah. It was just, all the casting was phenomenal. But let's go back. Let's start from the top. And like we said before, I feel like if you put both of these films with the animated side by side, they stuck to it so well. That I felt like I was watching Little Mermaid for the very first time.
Yeah, I literally just watched a TikTok where someone did that. And I was like, yeah, this is exactly the same. It was the Under the Sea song. And I was like, whoop, yep, exactly right. And even down to like the very end, we were talking about when like they're both coming up on Ursula's crown when she's really big. Like
they got so many even of the movements correctly of like how we saw it. I mean, even from the very beginning with, you know, the shark scene of getting like that whole scene.
Oh, I know. I like, as I was watching it, I just kept remembering the animated version, was like, oh my gosh, wait, this is gonna happen. Oh, it's gonna take so long for this to happen. Like I knew everything that was going to happen. I was so excited. But there were some differences.
There were. But like not enough that it took you out of the film.
No, but it did like well, I guess
there's moments, but the casting of King Triton, he was great. Javier Bardem. I can't say his name.
Isn't he married to Penelope Cruz?
Yep, they are. And he's a Spanish actor.
That's right.
But we've seen him in like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, so, I love him. He's fantastic. I do often confuse him with Denny Duquette from Grey's Anatomy. Anyway, he's fantastic. At the beginning of the movie, there's a part where it, you know, with all of Little Mermaid's sisters would come out and they do a little musical number and then she's not there. I missed that.
Yeah.
It was, I love that. Okay, but like I'm being it's not really
picky at that point.
Yeah, I'm being picky because they did stay true to a lot of the songs, which are fantastic.
Yeah, and it made sense that it's a council. They're coming to like talk about. I don't know if this was like I should have watched the original Little Mermaid, in comparison, but I don't remember. Maybe it's a new thing when they did it where each of the daughters were in charge of a certain sea,
right?
Of different area.
I don't think it gave it that kind of role like in the animated version. I don't think
so. And I think that was such a cool thing for them to include. Triton was originally a sea god with in Greek mythology, he was a son of the sea god Poseidon, so he's Poseidon's son.
Okay, I didn't realize Ursula was the sister. Can I just talk about that? I thought she was just some villain. I didn't realize they were related.
I feel like I knew that just from Greek mythology.
Okay,
maybe.
Did not know that.
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I feel like I knew that, but maybe not.
Did not.
And it would make sense that they would be siblings because I think in Greek mythology in general, it just doesn't make sense how they're all siblings, but they're totally different. But it was so good. And yeah, Sebastian, even the animation, I was worried about him originally, to be honest, when I watched the trailer. I'm like, that looks like nothing like Sebastian, what we're used to. He made me laugh so hard. There were so many funny moments that Sebastian had, but the one scene we didn't get also from about Sebastian.
The chef scene.
Yeah,
I did miss that scene. That was
cute. It wasn't a boat scene.
No boats.
I think what we wanted to see really, I think we talked about this, what I really wanted to see was the meet cute in the animated was so much better.
I love a good meet cute. So like, she definitely did not have that cutest meet cute. She just was found by some boat person and boatman sailor
and brought them to the castle.
Yeah,
and that's when so it just versus the animated, like she washes up on shore and she's, I guess, puts this outfit together.
I hated her dress.
She stumbles.
Can I just say,
what dress?
I didn't like the dress that she wore the whole time.
Was it always the same dress in the animated?
I think it was, but like, and I know they're probably trying to stay true to some sort of like.
No, it was blue with a black vest. Yes, was the animated one.
I know, and I'm sure like it was something that meant something to like that time, and that was the type of dresses they wore. I didn't like it. That's just me. I thought she could have looked better in a cooler dress.
The cooler dress.
This has been my gripe for the whole movie.
I was really confused. I think that was the one thing we did not get was, the marriage scenes for both of them. So the marriage scene for Ursula, whenever Ursula comes in and has, the siren song that she's, tricking Eric into marriage, and in the animated, you see them about to literally get married in that moment. But it was really just an engagement party in the actual like live action.
I mean, like it makes more sense.
Which makes sense, which is why they didn't we're just gonna get married today. But that's why I was really confused at the very end. And you had to say, like, I think they did get married. Was at the very end, they're all together and they're sending them off.
I think they did get married because she was wearing like a lighter colored dress.
But it was pinkish.
In a boat. I don't know. You're right. But like she was in a boat that almost would have said like just married at the back, on the back
exactly. Of it. But they went to go sail and go on adventures. And I thought that was really cute. Even them adding that Eric is a wants to go out on the voyage, wants to go out and sea and collect things. And he was a collector just like her.
I mean, I love that because like they actually showed that, oh, they had something in common. There was something they bonded over. Like, they both liked collecting things.
No.
Like, that was cute.
But even like them,
the Little Mermaid. Wait, can we talk about the Little Mermaid
the
statue?
Little Mermaid. Yeah, but in the animated one, we never really find out why it was My Little Mermaid or My Little Mermaid, the Little Mermaid. You know.
Can we circle back to Ursula?
Yeah,
I loved Melissa McCarthy's adaptation of Ursula.
Phenomenal.
She was so good, and I was worried in the same way that I was worried about like Awkwafina and being taken out and not really seeing her for who she is. And I did for a minute. Like, I will say, I'd be like, that's Melissa McCarthy, like Gilmore Girls, like I'm having flashbacks. But it took me out. Like she really, like, I was immersed in the movie.
Immersed in it.
She was so good. I had one little qualm, but it's a teeny tiny qualm, and that when she does her makeup, one of my favorite things as a child is seeing her squish whatever she squished to put lipstick on. And I'm telling you right now, my sister and I tried to recreate that lipstick scene with French fries.
When we were kids.
Oh, yesterday.
Not yesterday.
I would squish a little French fry and a little puff of potato would come out, and I would put that on my lips. I was like,
honestly, yeah. That scene, I think even her swimming into where Ursula lived was a lot more eerie live action than it was. Like, honestly, like they did a really great job of just bringing in that, like, hey, like she's pretty evil. She's pretty, you know, how she is. And I think, man, there's so many good things about this film. Even like the animation for Ursula was really good too.
Yeah.
How they did, you know, the tentacles and all that stuff. Even like little dance moves that she would dance, like they match exactly what they animated. Like,
she was still hilarious because remember the scene when she's like looking for a potion? She's looking like, I can't find it. Oh, here it is. I was like, that's me. I went to you and I was like, me.
She literally turned to me. She's like, me.
Literally turn into Ursula when I can't find things.
But isn't that all of us?
I know, it's iconic.
But can we please talk about Eric's solo song?
Oh, I hate it.
It was probably so bad.
I hate it.
I just all I literally thought was Into the Woods.
Yes,
and the song, yes, and then that one song like Where Are You? You know, it's just like that's just what it felt like the whole time of him singing into like the abyss, I guess. Oh
so
my
I totally hated on it, but I will say like a little girl who this is the target audience for.
It is true. That is true.
Is going to love it.
I feel like these live actions are also targeting towards
for
all
us,
of us for nostalgia purposes,
maybe.
But mainly, you're right, mainly kids.
I mean, there were plenty of crying babies in our movie theater and children.
But the children laughing at all the fun things was really cute.
Like when they put the scuttlebutt part, this little girl next to me goes, scuttlebutt.
Yeah, I enjoy anything Lin-Manuel Miranda does, so I really enjoyed that song. I know you didn't.
I don't like him, and I'm sorry.
Wait, you don't like Lin-Manuel Miranda?
I don't. I'm going to get so much hate for this opinion.
All right, thanks for being on the podcast.
I'm sorry, Lynn. Like
He's never going to listen to this.
I don't. No, because I just think all of his stuff sounds exactly the same, that I was just like, ugh, Lin-Manuel Miranda rap in the same exact cadence.
It was Daveed Diggs, who was in Hamilton, like the one on Disney Plus too. Like he was one of the original cast members. He played Sebastian. Sebastian. Yeah. But the whole musical number, I know they had to add it because when you think of Beauty and the Beast, when they did live action, they added Evermore.
Yeah.
And that was phenomenal. I mean, Josh Groban, beautiful voice. The song was not as great.
It's not it.
As I wanted it to be. It was...
Was he a good singer? Because you're a singer and you know things. I don't know things.
For that audience, yes. It's not awful.
Okay.
It was still entertaining, but anyway. But yeah, after that song, I wanted to like it. I really wanted to like it because one of my friends had said, "You're gonna go watch Little Mermaid." I'm like, "Yeah, all right. Just tell me your thoughts on Eric's song." I'm like, "All right." Yeah, so I was prepared. And I'm like, it's probably going to be good. And started singing. I'm like, okay. Oh, no.
It was weird. It was cheesy.
But anyway, moving
it didn't
on.
ruin the movie, though, for me.
Yeah, no.
It's like a little
like, everything else was so good. All musical numbers were good. Even... I love even Sebastian and Scuttle's and Founders, their whole thing of, you know, the kiss the girl scene of them doing that.
And I know there was some issues with like they changed the lyrics. I didn't notice. It was fantastic.
It was great. Honestly, this whole film just brought me back to my childhood. I felt like that 5-year-old, 6-year-old girl watching it for the
Oh my
first
gosh,
time.
wait, me too.
Like, I got so much chills just throughout the film, and I literally afterwards, I'm like, I have to see it again. Like, I want to rewatch it over and that's one of the movies I want to rewatch over and over and over again, because that was probably that's my favorite Disney princess growing up ever.
Yeah.
Remember so I don't know if anyone else here remembers this, but there were these coin collector Disney princesses.
Yes. And they smelled a little strange.
Yes. But it's a coin, it's a piggy bank. Yes. But like a princess bank. They all are in the shape.
Had all of them.
Yeah.
The icons.
I would say for me, top, Little Mermaid was my favorite. And then it was Cinderella, and then Sleeping Beauty, and then the rest.
Why did I think as a kid, like Cinderella was mine and Sleeping Beauty was yours, and we shared Little Mermaid?
Yeah.
That was kind of how I found
Little Mermaid, our favorite. Top favorite.
Can we talk about the controversies of this film?
Yeah.
I feel like there were the two things. And one, we talked about a little bit, the animation and whether or not, like, I think there's a lot of complaints about, oh my gosh, that's how they like did the CGI for water. That's so crazy. And I'm like, of course, like they don't have the same budget. Relax. Yeah. Like, it's still fantastic.
But you didn't notice as much. I think maybe during the Under the Sea, like movie, that scene sequence, you might have noticed like
things didn't make sense of how their hair was moving or something.
But as the song progressed, I was like, okay, I can see it. Like, it was great, Yeah. The folklorico, little animation.
Give me that vibe.
Yeah, it had more of a Spanish feel to it. The song had more of a Spanish twist to the arrangement was really good.
And of course, the other controversy, of course, in her being casted as a Black woman.
Yeah.
And like, I loved her. Like, and I've loved her since Blackish, her and their sister. So like, I've always loved that actress.
Oh my god. Oh, excuse
me. She's in Grownish.
Grownish. Yes.
And I've loved her. She's such a sweet, sweet person. And like, I loved it. Like, and I will say I saw a lot more. I definitely feel like a lot of little Black girls will be able to identify themselves in her. And I think that's super cute. And they can like see like Little Mermaid's Black. Cool. Oh my gosh, she has the same kind of hair as me. That's amazing. Like,
it was so beautiful. I loved seeing all the reaction trailers that people posted on TikTok when the trailer came out. And they're like, wait, she looks like me. I was like, all the tears. It was so beautiful. And honestly, like
Ariel, the only other Black Disney princess was Tiana, right?
Yeah. One of the best like Disney princess movies that I think live action. I want to say it's almost my favorite one. I love Cinderella.
But it didn't stay true to the original. But I get why they did it. We talked about this because like there already are so many live action Cinderella adaptations. I mean, the one with Whitney Houston will always be my favorite.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Impossible.
But yeah, no, that one was good. But this one was good.
I mean, they flipped a little things. Like I was saying, like in the animated feature, we see a little, whenever Ursula is like a Titan, basically like super, huge and everything, like above the water, she begins doing that like tidal pull or whatever thing. Mm-hmm. And I want to say in the animated version, Ariel is at the very bottom and Eric's the one driving the ship that pierces Ursula, and then he jumps out of the ship. But mm-hmm. they flipped it in this film to where it's Ariel the one steering the ship, and then Eric is the one who's like hanging right there about to be killed. But
I like that message that they were showing of like she
was strong enough she saved her dad. Her dad, they actually killed the dad off, King Triton.
Intense.
They killed him off.
Yeah.
Versus like in the animated, he shriveled up to this little shrimp thing.
It was kind of scary. Kind of gave me like Hercules vibes. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
But I think though the whole message, because I feel like with all of these adaptations, there's always like a bigger message. And yes, it was the love, like that was cute. But I think it was also showing that like, she had loyalty to her family and that she'll protect her family, but she's also going to be an independent woman and she's going to go off and do her thing.
Yeah.
Like she's going to like.
It was the dad learning to let go of her and, and for her to.
Yeah, exactly. But like for him to recognize that she is still loyal to the family. She's still going to protect the family. And obviously she proved that with like saving her dad.
Yeah. And I feel like in this live action film, they definitely made her older versus the animated and the original story of this is dark.
It's scary.
Because
doesn't her tongue get
Ursula actually cuts her tongue off.
Was it the Grimm brothers?
Is the Grimm? I believe it's the Grimm brother.
Correct us. Say Diana is wrong in the next email.
But you know, all of the stories of Disney actually come from these older folk tales.
Most of them,
you know, and so they adapt, and which is really where a lot of fantasy kind of also comes out of. So like that's where Disney brings adapted it into like children's, you know, movies instead. But yeah, so you know, she's 16 technically, you know, in all of these. I want to say she's 16 in the animated film also.
Well, they said she was a teenager, so I mean, at most she'd be at
least
19.
In the original story, she's 16.
Yeah.
And so I remember every time, but and like she didn't do this in the live action. In the animated, she says, "But Daddy, I love him."
Yes. Wait, she calls him Daddy in like the animated, and she called him Father in the live action.
Whenever she said that, I would always be like, you're 16. I'm
Daddy,
sorry. You just met him.
You're right. Wait, but wasn't the statue supposed to look exactly like
I think it was supposed to look like him. But granted, our statue is always the exact replica in real, like live action, exactly, you know?
Sure. Just look at Louis Capaldi's.
But can we talk about her, like, creepy scene?
Oh, yeah, when she's, like, coming up on the rock, and then she's about to do the whole, like, water rushing behind her, and she's just,
like creeps into...
And then,
I was watching the it's so creepy.
It was just her hands.
It was just like stalkery. Like I can't see my hand moving right now, but it's like moving a little.
You know that like their purpose behind it. They wanted to show us be like, yes, I'm determined. Yes, this is what I'm gonna do, and this is how I'm gonna do it. And she was supposed to be like kind of like fierce, but like instead it gave like, I'm going to kill you. Like, yeah, that was a miss, but it was okay.
How do we feel about, you know? I want to say, because we you know, we always want to bring this into like a whole Christian perspective to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we feel about, you know, what is a good review for Christian parents who are wanting to take their kids to go see this film?
I think with any Disney movie, of course, a lot of parents, of course, have to have that conversation with their kiddos and being like, you know, this type of magic does not exist. And if there's anything like dark, that doesn't come from God, and just giving that kind of preface. And like, it's going to come up in Disney films, period. And they're going to watch these films, whether it's you take your kids to the movie, or they're going to watch it at the end of the school year when the teacher puts it on. Like, they're going to watch these movies. That's just what's going to happen. So I don't know. I think just giving that caveat to begin with. And of course, knowing that like, and I talked about it earlier for little black girls to be able to identify with it. What I meant by that is like, to be able to see people that look like them depicted in Disney movies as a princess is a healthy thing. But that's not to say like any little girl should be like, that's who I want to be. Like, no, that's Jesus.
Yeah. And we talked about that in my last episode, that I think a lot of we talk about fantasy, a lot of that, and how it really began when I started watching Disney princesses. I'm like, man, I want that happily ever after. I think it not, and then life was disappointing. No, I mean, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's a good, healthy balance of both. And I think having a good conversation with your kids, like, hey, you know, we love this. I don't know. I'm not a parent, so I'm not one to like tell you how to parent, but
like, it's the whole, like, don't teach your kids, like, follow your heart, but follow Jesus kind of thing. And of course, a lot of these Disney films are going to be like, follow your heart, follow your intuition. And it's just about having that conversation. But like,
and that's with any fantasy film. It's not just like Disney princesses. And I know a lot of folks have the issues with Disney nowadays, but you know, it's media, it's the world, and we live in the world. And I think it's also learning how to just be wise about what we watch and what we want our kids to watch, what we want to see. So, and it just comes with a little bit of discernment in that as well. And I think that goes throughout all of, not just Disney. We're not just Disney, you know, like any kind of fandom, any kind of shows, whatever genre that may be. It may be nerdy, it may be not. But you know, just with discernment. And I think I mean, I give this film, Little Mermaid, definitely like...
What's our scale?
Out of like 1 to 10, you think?
I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Because of, I didn't get my lipstick scene with Ursula. I didn't get my cute meet cute. And I didn't get the silvery dress. I wanted a silvery dress.
Think of like the Jonas Brothers, silvery dress.
Silvery dress.
Is it a red
I
dress?
wanted the silvery dress, and I wanted that little moment when she comes out and it's like so blinding and glittery and amazing. And I'm like looking on TikTok for people to like show me different versions of what they would have done, and I wanted it so badly, but it didn't happen. Instead, what did she wear? The same dress.
Yeah. I was just.
What did you rate it?
I would say 9.5.
Why?
I loved it all. The 0.5 is docked points of Eric's song.
Forgot about that.
I don't care about the silvery dress and like the other things they missed. I think it was great as it was. It was 0.5 as Eric's song.
What they added. So like, okay, yeah, let's talk
about. It could have been a totally different song. They could have made it more natural. Like, I don't know. Like,
felt forced.
It just felt forced. And I wanted it to be like before Kiss the Girl, like right in the moment where he's like noticing her more. But I guess Kiss the Girl is kind of that, I guess.
Wait, remind me, when did this scene come out? Was it before or after he got to know her?
That was the scene after where he doesn't know who she is. He hasn't met her yet. She hasn't come on shore yet.
Literally just fell in love with like a woman who sang to him.
But it was a siren song, remember? Because that was one thing that we forget that I don't think I really caught it when I watched the animated as a kid, because kids don't really notice that kind of stuff as much. But in traditional, like in Greek mythology or just mythology with mermaids, is that there are sirens. We always we never hear them as mermaids. We hear them as sirens, and they're usually dangerous, like in the Odyssey.
Yeah.
In the Odyssey, we see, in the Bermuda Triangle, that's where the sirens are to lure sailors to their deaths. And we see sirens also depicted in Pirates of the Caribbean as completely vicious and scary. That was pretty creepy.
Why did I think of like the Marvel song?
That song that they used though in Pirates of the Caribbean of the siren song
that one was
very scary. But we also see sirens and mermaids in Peter Pan as rude and not nice, and so we have this whole mentality of sirens not being good. So I think, which makes sense why the people in Little Mermaid, like the humans, have the stigma against mermaids because of the sirens.
Yeah, but she used it for good.
She used it for good to heal, apparently.
Because that's when Sebastian was like, and she used her siren song to heal him or something like that. I was like, whoa, that's a cool way to look at it.
Exactly.
And it emphasized the importance of taking over her voice. I just thought Ursula was just trying to be mean and making it hard for her to like have
No, she wanted to use it as a siren to do what she wanted to do, to lure humans, I guess.
So it makes sense.
Anyway, that is probably our first react. We just saw the movie like probably about like 2 hours ago. Yeah. 3 hours ago. So this is our first reaction to it. If there's anything else that we might have missed when I put it on here, but our first Disney princess, I guess, review, fun thing. So for those of you who are normally not, Disney princess fans, and you're like, I thought this was a nerdy podcast, it counts.
You can skip it.
You can.
I'm just kidding. Don't skip it. This is the one I'm in.
This is the one I'm in. But yeah, so cool. Thanks, Diana.
De nada,
for being on this episode. And I hope it's not the last. I've been trying to get her on, y'all. Listen, if she's your favorite guest that I've had on this episode so far, or these podcasts so far, please let me know, and there'll be more incentive to get her more on an episode. Maybe Marvel. I have a lot of Marvel TV shows. There's a lot of stuff coming up soon that I need guests for. So I hope to have you back.
I hope to be back. I have to like know that I want it, because otherwise I'll be like, they don't want me.
They will want you back. They will. Is there anything that you want our audiences to know? It could be a really random fact. We've had really random ones so far. It has nothing to do with Little Mermaid, or you want anything else Little Mermaid related that you would like to add?
It's kind of sort of Little Mermaid related. I just want to talk really quick about like how cool it was that they brought in like kind of like a Jamaican feel to it. Like if that was the vibe they were going for, like in my
Caribbean,
mind,
kind of, right?
Yeah, like a Caribbean. Yeah.
I totally said Caribbean.
Either one is right. It's like a whole thing. Caribbean, Caribbean. They're said either way, except you can't
Parts
go
of the
Pirates of the
Caribbean
Caribbean.
ruined me.
You can't say that. Yeah. I think that was a cool way to like explain why their little island might have been separated from the rest of the world.
Because they wanted to gain, like...
be able to trade with other nearby islands or like countries. And then the cool part about how like their ships kept sinking. And I thought that was like cool that like now they've got like this bridge with like the sea world, not Shamu world. And I thought that was cool that they tied that in, and that now that they have like this cool marriage and like relationship, and like now the seas will be friendly towards that.
Doesn't that make you want... Obviously, Little Mermaid 2 animated sucked. It was okay. Melody, you know.
I wonder about Melody and
but no. Like now that they're going out to adventures, there's all this whole political stuff. Like, not really political stuff, but you know, with their kingdom and everything. Like, I want to know what's next.
I know.
Like, it almost makes you want to explore that world a lot more.
I know. I'm not hopeful, but
not
I
hopeful,
wish they would.
But they totally could. I don't know. It's just maybe. Well, thanks, Anna, for being on this episode. I love you.
You're welcome. I love you.
For all you listeners, see y'all next week. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nerds and Jesus podcast. This podcast is produced, edited, created, and hosted by me, Mary Howell. I also run our social media and Patreon page and also did our art. The music is by John Bjork. And if you're looking for a way to get connected into the Nerds and Jesus podcast community, you can follow us on social media at Nerds and Jesus. And for more bonus content, physical merch, and so much more, you can visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/nerdsandjesus. You can also become a producer level patron as a supreme nerd, where you will get your name read at the end of every episode as well. If you would like to continue to support the show, you can share this podcast word of mouth with everyone you know. You can also review and rate our episode wherever you get your podcast. Anything helps, and thank you so much for listening to this episode. See y'all next week.